Odds Checker Nation, we are back for our MLB weekend preview. I am Jamie Kelton alongside with the fabulous Mr. John Laghezza. John, how's it going?
All right, what's fabulous? I am fantabulous. I'm doing awesome. Jamie, the second I see you, I start smiling. Yeah, I'm ready to go, man. You asked me how I was doing, and that's it. It's just a whirlwind right now, and man, it's baseball 24 hours a day. Let's get it right. Let's get it. Let's do it to it.
It is. We're a week in. It feels so good. Okay, let's talk about first. We're about 7 to 8 games into the regular season, and I know we talked last week about some teams that we were expecting to start hot, and some maybe not so much that are hyped up too much, like the Chicago White Sox. But let's talk about some early surprises that we've had in the season so far, both good and bad. Let's start with the good. Who are you liking? Who surprised you positively so far?
Well, I think the best way to do this, right, is not just who's surprising, but maybe let's say if we believe in it and if we think we can act on it and make some money, because at the end of the day, as much fun as this is, that's really what we're doing here. So, for example, we've seen the Royals kind of play out of their shoes a little bit. You know, I'm not sure I'm necessarily buying all that. The team average has been very high. They're not really striking out. Really a lot of stuff that's out of character, but a lot of the other peripherals not really in place. You look at the starting pitching, the Royal starting staff has a near 7 ERA and a whip above 1.6. Those things are not going to get it done. So something like that, even though they did start off hot and they're hitting a little bit, I'm not ready to act on that, Jamie. You know what I mean? So that is not going to do it for me. Let's talk about a team that is going to do it for me. And It's my Reds. I know I'm a Yankee guy. It's hard to catch me not wearing pinstripes. But I was really big on the Reds because of the way that they do it. We talked about this already. I like to bet on pitching. I like power pitching, and I like power arms in the bullpen, and we'll kind of figure out the run scoring, right? I want to win with 2 or 3. I don't want to have to win with 7 or 8, let's say. So when you're talking about the Reds are just really doing it all. Starting pitching, ERA right around 3. Gotta love it. All the peripherals are strong behind it. 30% K rate. They get chases. The swinging strike rate as a rotation above 14%. That's really just excellent. And onto the offense, the Reds are basically leading the league in runs and home runs. Their team batting average over 300. A team OPS over 1,000. Barrel rate over 13%. The Reds are doing it on both sides of the ball. They were a big underdog. And right now, Jamie, something we were talking about is trying to make some money. The line on the Reds futures has not adjusted, and you can still get them. I'm looking at Odds Checker, wonderful site. Everyone get on it now. 38-1 for a team that is leading the league in offense and has a top pitching staff. Granted, I'm a bit worried about the infield defense along with some other people, but hey, 38-1, there's only 30 teams. So 38-1 for a team that is already looking really good, shooting out in front of a weak division. There's a team that's really good that I don't believe in, and one team that's really good that maybe I do believe in.
So, all right. So what I'm hearing from you, John, is that the Reds are red hot right now.
Yeah.
And we're riding high on them.
Yeah, and I mean, the market really hasn't adjusted. Granted, it's a long season, but it is kind of funny how fast it happens. Every time we get to 8 games, every 8 games is 5%, right? 16 games is 10% of the big guy. Half of that is 8 games and 5%. So 5% is not totally actionable, but enough 5% equal 10%, and that equals 20%. And then before you know it, half of the season is gone. Right. So the market for futures in particular, I don't think moves fast enough. Now, granted, we don't want it to be shooting all over the place. Because, again, think teams like the Royals, it shouldn't react to them. But teams like the Reds, I think that it should. You also mentioned the White Sox. I think that's the other direction. And we spoke about this, Jamie. We spoke about this. Sometimes the penny saved is the penny earned. And when you identify chalk that you don't necessarily believe in, we talked about it with the Dodgers. We talked about it with the White Sox. They're overpriced, and there was really only one way for the price to go. And right now the price is down a bit. So had you bought on the White Sox, you're already behind on the bet with a long way to go. Man, it could be tough, So I think when you get into futures, that's always really important to identify where we think the prices may go, where the market may take it. So I'm backed off for the White Sox, and if you are still interested in them, something I do in stock trading, Jamie, is often let's wait for some confirmation, meaning in on Wall Street, I should say, we would say don't try and catch a falling knife, right? The blade's facing down, you're going to get hurt. Wait for it to bounce, hit the floor, and then pick up the handle. So right now they're kind of tanking. They've had some injuries. Let's wait for the White Sox to pick it up as a team. It's a long season. Let them string off 2, 3, 4 wins in a row before you say, okay, now we're back on track. Everyone looks good. Let's get the bullpen right, because they just haven't been great. So I want, especially with these broad view futures plays, I want a team that looks strong on all phases before I put my money behind them. And something like the Reds, look, we were able to wait. We got information, and now the price hasn't moved, and we're almost like at a competitive edge here against the people that had bet it before the season started.
So let's talk about some other teams that were early good surprises so far through the first 7 to 8 games that we've had. The Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, number 1 in the NL East right now, and yep, my Atlanta Braves, second to last. So I know we talked about the Braves last week and how we were expecting to see another good performance. What's going on? Why are they so down so far this year? And what are the Phillies doing right?
Okay, well, the Phillies are doing what I like, and that's pitch, right? So the Phillies starting pitching, it's at 2.18 ERA. That's tops in the league, and really all the peripherals kind of back it up. They're in the top 5 in first strike rate. They get a lot of Ks, and they don't walk a lot of people. Here's some good quick numbers for people when you're trying to make these bets. Not saying a quick, when you're just trying to do a quick evaluation. The Philly staff has a 27% K rate and a 7% walk rate. Whenever you can subtract K minus walk and come up with 20 or better, that's exactly where you want to be. And that's what they're doing. The contact metrics for these Phillies are really good. They're doing it all. They're doing it all. And the offense has just been good enough. It has been great. I wanted to get to these Braves. Braves.
Hold on. Let me pause you right there. I want to go
go.
That equation that you just gave me. I feel like that's something really important for our odds checker nation to take note out of. So one more time, a little bit slower. Can you go through that equation and tell us so people at home can do that?
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of times the most critical kind of formulas that we use not only are simple, they're generally not based on results, right? We don't want batted ball data because that's where it gets crazy, who is playing defense and the atmosphere in the ballpark. So something like Ks and walks are pretty controlled, and they're in the control of the batter and the hitter. These disciplinary metrics are things that I really like to focus on, because patience is not really something that you could teach, right? It is a virtue, Jamie, for a reason. So when you can put together your K rate and your walk rate, subtract the two. Obviously, a pitcher wants to strike out the most amount of people and walk the least amount of people. So the larger of a disparity between those two is the better metric.
So do we take the walks minus the Ks, or the Ks?
No, Ks minus walk. Ks walk. Well, if you can subtract that way, you're in a lot of trouble. You don't want to be walking more guys than you're K'ing, right? So we want to be K'ing, 3 times the guys we're walking. So let's, although in theory we could do it that way, we'd end up with negative numbers. That's another story for another day.
And we want that number to be over 20. Over
right.
20.
K minus walk over 20 is that benchmark for really elite. And I know in theory it is a single stat, but it's not, because it is an amalgamation, right? It uses K minus walk, but also sometimes 1 + 1 = 3. It tells us a story about it. There's very hard to paper over a plus 20% K minus walk. So the Phils are doing everything. And for the Braves nation out there, from the those dirty birdies that I love so much. There's something I love about it, Atlanta. I've only been as close as Savannah, but I love Georgia. And if I ever do leave New York, which might be on the horizon.
That's because I'm from there.
That's probably where, yeah. Well, that's as soon as I heard that, I was like, honey, pack up the kids. We're getting on the midnight train to Georgia. She said, we're getting on the midnight train to Georgia. And I said, you know it. I said, you know it. Yeah, I've just a little bit of flair I have, just a little bit. So to those Braves, again.
I think then that would flip to the devil went down to Georgia.
Well,
the second you moved down.
I believe the character name is Johnny, right? Isn't Johnny a central? Yeah, and I probably have something in common with that fella. That's another one. We'll do that. That'll be on the PM edition of the R-rated podcast that we do, and the after hours edition of this. All right, back to business. Let's do it. So again, we always want to separate process from the ending results, especially when it has to do with batted ball data, Jamie, because that's where it gets crazy. So the Braves, on the surface, it looks pretty poor. The ERA for the staff is over 4, and the WHIP is a little bit high. But the walk rate is not high. So walk rate is huge, and usually it's the center of WHIP, which is walks plus hits, per innings pitched. So if your walk rate is low, but your WHIP is high, that means right off the bat, there's batted ball data involved. When we look at the kind of earn run indicators, I should say, something like XFIP, these are things that us geeky analysts use to separate some of the noise, right? And their XFIP as a rotation is below 3. It's phenomenal. It's like the top in the league. So again, 30% K, which is a singular benchmark for excellence, right? We talked about K minus walk, 30 on its own for strikeouts, but they also have a 7% walk rate. So their K minus walk is actually better than the Phillies. They have an excellent in-zone contact rate. Now think about this, Jamie. This is another good one. Since we're getting into having people understand, we want hitters to not be making contact when a pitcher challenges them in the zone, right? When a pitcher has to throw the strike, we want a hitter to not make contact on it. That's what the Braves do very well. They do a lot of things very well. The barrel rate is low. The hard hit rates are low. The Brave staff is on the way up. Freed got touched up. He's fine. We need Mike Soroka back. I know he kind of piggybacked his Achilles injury, but they say he should be back in 7 or 10 days is all the setback was. So I think brighter things are on the horizon for the Braves.
Okay. Oh, that's good to hear. I mean, especially if you're a tomahawk chopper like I am. Okay, let's switch gears really quick and look at some World Series futures. We talked about them a little bit last week, but now after we have this week under about who's looking too cheap and who's too expensive for you right now, John?
All right. Yeah, these are pretty simple. Again, we just are working off analysis that you and I already did, right? People could go and check that episode because a lot of that stuff still plays. Those future tickets are still open. The board is generally unchanged. Mm-hmm. So this is just, did we get confirmation or find out something new? So for me, who's too cheap? The LA Angels are too cheap. Shohei Ohtani is a once-in-a-century type of talent right now. He is like Babe Ruth, basically. And, that means a lot coming from a New Yorker wearing the pinstripes constantly. It really is truly, it's amazing. And it's more than just a generational thing. It's a century thing. So they look really good. Some of their pitching, the young pitching we were waiting for, looks pretty good. So the Angels are good. And I think they're too cheap now. The Marlins, who I mentioned, I love, and I know they're staying with the bad team narrative, but they're also very good. That pitching staff is phenomenal. They have a 2.36 ERA on the season with a 1 flat whip. They're just phenomenal. They lost a couple games in the bullpen. Yeah, that affects a win total, but they're one of the best rotations in the league. They shouldn't be 100 to 1. That's to me, that's a simple misprice. And then the Astros, we were unsure about Bregman. He's healthy. We were unsure about Jordan Alvarez. He's healthy. And the big dog was like lumbering. I mean, I know you've watched a combine or two in your day. He was out there lumbering. That boy looked like he could have played defensive line somewhere in Texas, So that's another misprice because you can't have uncertainty about that good of a piece and have it not affect the price. So the fact that Alvarez is playing every day, he looks like a MVP vote getter, and he's in the center of that lineup, and they're off the charts right now. They're a little too cheap. I think the other way are just the teams we mentioned. The White Sox are a little too expensive, and the Braves are just a little too expensive because I know I'm picking up on it. I think the market is yet to react downward. And again, let's watch the price in the Braves, Jamie. If the price sinks, then we'll think about taking it. Where it's constituted, again, it's not a smash now because I don't think it's going anywhere. If they start to rock and roll and rattle off 5-6 games in a row, then you can grab it at the current price. But you see how price is always part of the calculus, and it really never happens in a vacuum.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So a lot of these prices are affected by injuries and key players being in or out of the game. Let's talk about some early injuries and how they're impacting their teams. I mean, one off the top of my head right now, Evan Judge on your Yankees. What's going on? Let's talk about the Yanks and let's go through some of these important injuries.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, there's a lot of analysts who, when you mention a Yankee injury to someone named Stanton or Judge, you're just going to say, well, that's what you get. That's what it is. But, no one can predict injuries, and we don't know when they're going to happen or how they're going to happen. I'm worried it's the side again. That oblique has held him out before. He was taking swings earlier today. So there is a bright spot, and I think we can monitor it. They wouldn't have allowed him to be taking batting practice. They've been very kind of ginger with him, let's say, So I am a little optimistic that maybe we see Judge in another week. And in the meantime, the Yankees are very deep. I don't think he's a very good piece, but I think the offense will be fine providing they continue pitching. So, I hope the big man is okay soon, but I don't think we start to worry until either he stops taking BP or they make some kind of IL announcement.
Interesting. Is there anyone else who stands out to you as having an immediate impact on the season so far that's injured, like Tatis, Springer?
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Let's,
I think you got. Yeah, I think you. Those that listen to Tatis, there has been a change, and I think there's a slight lesson here for fantasy players. And it's, reacting is one thing. Don't overreact. At first, it was the world is ending. His shoulder, is done, and his season is cooked. And people were rage dropping him before confirmation. Now it looks like he might not need surgery. He could be back in a few weeks. So I need to see it first before I believe it. But you can't drop him yet. So also the Padres are very deep. They are particularly very deep at middle infield. So they should be fine until he gets back. That's how good they are. How could you miss a player like Tatis and not miss a step? I don't think they will. Same thing to be said maybe for the Blue Jays, who, though they're not hitting right now, I think they're very good. George Springer tacked on an injury to his quad. So he was getting close to returning, and now he had a setback. And again, something I've heard you talk about in your other shows with injury, Jamie, is how one injury can kind of create other ones through overcompensation. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I always worry about that. So whenever a player, even if it's not major, has injury A and then injury B, let's get them back on the field before we start celebrating, right? So I'm not dropping Springer, but I don't think we can count the eggs before they're hatched here, right? Had you done that already, you already kind of swung and missed. A few other guys there are starting to come back, like Grisham, who was hurt for the Padres. He'll be back. Olsen, who was hurt for the Athletics, he played last night. So right now the injury front is settling, a little bit. Also, Ramon Laureano is back for the A's. So a lot of the big kind of impactful guys are starting to play. And, that's always fun for me. I like, even when the teams I'm not fans of, I like when everyone's at full strength. I always think the game's more fun that way.
Of course. And just for our bettors out there, do you think that one or two significant injuries really changes how someone should play their money when it comes to betting these games?
Yeah, it kind of ties into what we were saying before. I would want to see the reaction. And I think let's call it the static nature of the futures market, meaning, that it's not volatile, showed that the Padres line didn't really move when Tatis went down. So it's hard to lose a bigger piece than that. And to not have trust me, the cappers and the casinos know everything that I know, that they're deep and at middle infield. But still, the fact that, the top fantasy player in the league doesn't shift the futures market probably says a lot about it. So I wouldn't be overreacting, although I think it probably goes without saying, I wouldn't be investing in teams that are first getting injuries because the price hasn't moved. If the Yankees price does move because Aaron Judge ends up on the shelf, now Yankees discount is something I'm interested in, so again, not being happening in a vacuum. I think there's always a bit of calculus going on.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. I love that. Okay. Let's talk about pacing your bankroll. Okay. We have wow. John's like, I love it when you talk dirty to me. Let's get it. So apparently there's a lot of like services in trouble already due to poor risk management, and flawed expectations. Let's talk about that a little bit and how that impacts things.
That is exactly what's going on. I wish I could say it didn't happen to people, but it happens all the time, and it happens to pros. I'm kind of doing air quotes because the true professional in handicapping, and this is not to like kind of morally browbeat anybody, it's just really an objective fact of the foundational mathematics behind this. We cannot predict the winners. We can control our risk management. So when I see services, cappers, or even individuals, now I know you never want to blame the individual, but we are adults. Even though it's tough, it's a gray area because a lot of times these are people that go to services with money to learn, to get paid to make some money. And that's why I always make sure to really try and always wear my professor cap, as you could tell, that even if the picks don't hit, I try and leave people sharper than they were the day before, because I can't predict a winner, but I can put myself in the best kind of probabilistic scenario at all times. And to build on that, to expand on that, I certainly control the risk there. So baseball starts and everybody wants to just fly out of the box. 15 games every single day. It's like, oh my goodness. And that's the big mistake, because when it comes to betting baseball, it's really like trading, and it's hurry up and wait. That's one of the sayings. We gotta hurry up and wait, because that's what we're doing. We're not acting. We're not reacting. We're proactive.
Mm-hmm.
I put out bets where I find inefficiencies in the market right now, mostly based on people who are inexperienced at betting and are chasing bad teams, not understanding underlying analytics. I'm not at full capacity right now as far as risk goes, and I can quantify that for people. I'll give you an idea. When the reason I'm able to relate, Jamie, let's back up just half a step.
Yep.
The reason I'm able to relate and the reason I succeed is because I stay in the game. I'm always in the arena. I trade and I bet every single day of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you do that? And the key is management, and probably more so to not really be emotional. So when you run into these kind of fake touts, right? You could spot them. They take pictures in front of private jets. They carry purses, right? They wear pink and do weird stuff, and you never hear them ever talk about taking a loss or how to manage their way through a drawdown or proper management at all, right? All they talk about is 40,000 unit hits right off the bat. It's our job as a handicapper to sniff the fugazi. That's a fugazi. Okay, that's not legit. That's not real. That's not how it works. I can tell you how it does work, and it's not particularly sexy. It's not particularly exciting. And a unit is 1%. So fake Twitter touts use the term unit to trick you. I made 500 units. What if a unit is 3 cents? What if a unit is, even if it is $100? But what if you had 500,000 and you only made $500? Give me the guy who had $50 and made 75, right? We need to deal in percentages. Always. That's why I'm able to speak to any follower, any of my subs, because we're talking percentages. And you want to make more money. The key is not to risk more on a daily basis. The key is to fund it and create a larger base with which to go. Okay, so that was the backup. This is the going forward before we get out of here.
Yep.
I never put more than 1% of my total stack on any one event. And furthermore, I never put more than 3.5% of the total stack on any given day.
Okay, let's say that. Let's say that one more time. I feel
you got it. And that's how you stay in the market every day. Okay. There is a road to ruin if you over leverage yourself. If you bet 10% every day and you have a couple losing days, you're going to get smoked. We talked about this last time. Losing is bad, and it's harder to get it back once you lose. Meaning, if you lose 10%, you need 11 to get it back, is what I should say.
Yeah.
Okay. So
okay.
That stuff, man, it's just absolutely critical. So 1% is 1 unit. Don't bet more than 1% of your stack on any given event, and never more than 3.5% of your total account on a given day. That will allow you to survive, to sustain through drawdowns, which are inevitable. Anyone telling you they go 75-0, 142-0, they're lying to you. It's that simple. It's that simple. Who's the person telling the truth? The person that says, I can't predict the future, but we're always going to try and be in the right position, and we're always going to manage that money, right? So I don't get ahead by risking 100% every day. I get ahead by building my small business and funding properly, Jamie.
Well, what I can tell you, John, is that our audience is going to be a lot more prepared and a lot more successful if they are tuning in and listening to you every Friday before we get into our weekend slate of games. This has been great. I know I already learned so much. So I
appreciate you.
I'm so excited for Odds Checker Nation to apply all of the amazing things that you just laid on us today. All right. Looking forward to this weekend's games. We will see you next Friday for oddschecker.com/US. I am Jamie Kelton, and that is John Laghezza. See you guys next time.
Thank you.